now take you to the broadcast of It's Time with Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. Here's Reverend Martin.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Blackwell. My name is Pastor Nathaniel Wayne Martin. I'm the pastor of the New Life Institutional Baptist Church here in the city of Los Angeles, and happy to report that we do have some of the wildfires out, at least better containment than it was last Friday when I did this broadcast, so that's a blessing. We're no closer than we were 5 months ago to having a vaccine or a standardized or uniform test for the coronavirus, so that part we still have to pray and pray mightily that God would intervene and give us the deliverance that we so desperately going to have if we're going to have cooperation and participation of the entire government, the executive, the judicial, and the legislative branches of the government need to be working together to help the people. But so far that is not occurring. There's even dissension in the CDC and all of those other acronyms because of the political influence of the present Trump administration in the attempts by those who are desperately trying to get true facts out to the general public that would aid in the detection and in the prevention of this public health menace. However, I missed something there I wanted to say, and of course that is that we're located, the New Life Institutional Baptist Church, we're located at 8916 South Main Street, and we're worshiping with our sister church, the Shiloh Missionary Christian Church, which is pastored by my good friend, the Reverend Dr. Della F. Holiness. We had a great prayer meeting this past Wednesday night, and we just thank God for the fellowship, the spirit of the fellowship and the communion that pervades our meetings and our gatherings. It's so good when the church can work together as one without all the rancor and antipathy and all of the hostility and suspicion and rivalry and competition that so many times blocks the flow of the Holy Ghost in the body of Christ. This offering that I'm doing now, I'm doing a poor job of getting it going, looks like. This presentation is entitled, well, it's a social justice, social action presentation, and it's entitled, It's Time. And as I said, it's time for social justice, and that always mean environmental justice, as is the case with Flint, Michigan, where the people are asked to drink lead in the water, and the children are in danger of neurobiological deformities in their formative years. That lead pollution is very bad, but Flint is not the only place where we need environmental justice. You probably need environmental justice in the area in which you live. If you got more liquor stores and motels than you have fresh food places, and you got more fried chicken places than you have sit-down restaurants. That was even before the COVID virus. Then yes, you too are in need of some environmental justice. We need good food in our markets. We need decent markets in our neighborhoods. We need banks that we can put our money in, or go in and get our checks cashed, and get away from these check cashing places, these payday loan places. All of that plays into your environmental justice model, because that, whether you recognize it or not, that also impacts the public health. It impacts the public health. The liquor store proliferation in our areas and the like. All of that impacts our health, because where the liquor store is, there's also going to be some loitering and some drinking on the premises, and the other like vices will begin to multiply. And so don't play environmental justice cheap. If you are forced into an area, yes, forced because you didn't pick that area, you could afford to be there, and you couldn't afford to be where you wanted to be. And so that is environmental injustice, where you are forced into an area. Granted, it's not as bad as when Nicholson Gardens and Hawaiian Gardens and Pueblo del Rio and those other places were originally built, and we were just forced into that, or we were just forced to live on the east side of Los Angeles because of the customs, conventions, and traditions. It wasn't codified, but you knew not to come across that street. And so we need environmental justice, as the sociologists preach to us, and we also need economic justice. Lord knows we need economic justice. How can you survive in a capitalistic system without good economics? And this nation was built on the economic model. As Miss Isabel Wilkerson says, that caste system was imposed in the Constitution of this very great country in which we live. Now let me read the reparations scripture that undergirds our demand for reparation. Deuteronomy chapter 15, picking up the reading at verse 12 through the end of verse 14, says these words: "And if thy brother, an Hebrew man or an Hebrew woman, be sold unto thee and serve thee 6 years, then in the 7th year thou shalt let him or her go free from thee. And when thou sendest him or her out free from thee, thou shalt not let him or her go away empty, but thou shalt furnish him or her liberally out of thy flock, and out of thy floor, and out of thy winepress, of that wherewith the Lord thy God hath blessed thee, thou shalt give unto him or her." God had a concern and a regard, and he had an intent to help or to benefit the newly freed slave, not to be cast out, debased, dehumanized, despised, dejected, broke, with no credit, with no job, with nowhere to go, and all of that occurred here in the United States. No, God was not for that. God was for helping the slave, the newly freed from slavery, to get a foothold so that they could have a stake in the land, a stake in the country. Notice it said, "Thou shalt furnish," that means supply, liberally, out of thy flock, and out of thy floor, and out of thy winepress, of that wherewith the Lord thy God hath blessed thee. Thou shalt give, not sell, not rent, not lease, give unto them. They don't have to pay it back. We're giving it to them. Those stimulus checks that the government is holding up on, they need to give you that money. Don't demand that you pay it back or work it off or any such thing. Those moratoriums on the evictions need to be expanded or continued until they get this virus and vaccine under control so that people can get back to working. It's going to be very sad around here come November, December, and January when the eviction moratorium is lifted in the 1st of October, and people find themselves now with the prospect of uncertain living conditions, nowhere to call their own as far as where am I going to live. And this is the wrong type of country not to have nowhere to have a mailing address. Where am I going to get my mail? Where am I going to lay my head? Where am I going to put my children? And that is looming. Believe me, don't play it cheap. It is looming for the end of this year. We're coming to the end of September, and we got October. November is going to be the big vote, but the stimulus package is still not here. And yes, that stimulus package is needed, and the people should get it. They're entitled to it. I don't think they should hold that up any more than I feel that the federal government should hold Social Security hostage, because of the fact that all of us who have worked or labored, we paid into Social Security. That's not it is not a loan, it is not a subsidy that the government is giving us. No, it is actually money that the government took from us in our working years, so that when we got to where I am now in my 70s, I could get my money and I should not have to beg for it with my hat in my hand. Say amen, somebody. Social Security is the most successful program this country has ever initiated. And we must work hard to protect it. We must also work hard to protect our brothers and our sisters who for no fault of their own, or whether it is their fault, they're homeless. You can't leave people outdoors in the cold. You can imagine being outdoors in the cold of New York or our northern cities. Well, it's a shame and a sin before God that is the case. But we must begin to remediate that problem, and to get our homeless people up off the sidewalks, from under those bridges and freeway overpasses and those other vacant lot areas where you see homeless people just amassing and along the sidewalk. I know you go down by Western and Century Boulevard. They got a tent city over there on the east side of that street, and over there in that park on the west side. And so our brothers and our sisters are just that, our brothers and our sisters. And we must not harden our hearts against them or close our hands against our brothers. But I leave that to go to the issue before us of the outcome of the Breonna Taylor inquest, such as it was. The Attorney General said that the grand jury would not return an indictment against any of the officers in the death of Breonna Taylor, but they would hold one officer responsible because his shots went wild and went over into an apartment where some white people lived and endangered their lives. So they call that wanton endangerment. But the bullets that went into Breonna Taylor's body, as the family lawyer, Attorney Crump, can't think of his first name, said the bullets that went into Breonna Taylor's body, though, that was not murder. That was not a wanton murder, disregard for human life, since neither she nor her apartment were the place where the police was supposed to be. The person they were looking for was not in her, didn't live where she lived. But yet she was killed, and nothing is going to be done about the death of Breonna Taylor on the legal level in the state of Kentucky, in the city of Louisville. And so as I talk to you at this point, we are all very soberly digesting that grim news that there will be no charges. And frankly, although I knew there was not going to be any charges, simply because of where it happened, Louisville, Kentucky, and Louisville and Kentucky is not about justice for black people at no time. Mind you that Attorney General Daniel Cameron is himself a black man. That just goes to prove my point. That just because the person looks like you doesn't mean they like you, or doesn't mean that they're going to do anything for you. Now, you know, an attorney general can indict a ham sandwich, but they would not move the grand jury, to return indictments against any of those officers. And I noticed that all of those officers were white except for one. And but yet they were able to go into that Breonna Taylor's apartment without knocking, even though they're swearing up and down on a bunch of Bibles that they did announce themselves. But the very fact that they had a no-knock warrant says they did not announce themselves. They kicked that door in, and the people inside the apartment heard that noise and came out shooting, and there was a bloodbath there, and Breonna Taylor was killed. And these are the facts in the matter. Breonna Taylor was killed. The officers got a no bill returned from the grand jury, but Breonna Taylor got killed. She's in her grave. She will not rise. These officers are high-fiving and walking around in their quiet little suburbs and cliques and coteries. But Breonna Taylor is still dead, and nothing is done about it. And so we have you to understand why we have to march, why I have to do these type of programs, why we have to get out and vote, and why our vote is so important. Because you have to affect your society, you have to affect your community, you have to affect your neighborhood. And mind you, that none of those officers lived in Breonna Taylor's neighborhood or in Breonna Taylor's community, but they influenced her environment to the point they were a social determinant of the length of her life, and she is dead because of the actions of those police officers, because of the actions of the judge that signed the no-knock warrant. Excuse me for a second. I encourage you, therefore, not to listen to those who tell you don't vote. You need to vote. You will not survive without voting. You need to make that short walk to the voting booth, as Dr. King said. That's the most significant march you can do, is that short walk to the voting booth. You may not ever get out in the street, but you need to vote. You may never protest with a sign, but you need to take that short walk to the voting booth. If voting was not helpful, if voting did not have impact, then why did so many white people try to keep all of the black people in the South and most of the black people in the North from voting? Why? It's because of the fact that without your vote, then the white people could put who they wanted in office, as they have done. And that is why our school curriculums, our school buildings, our school facilities, our parks, and the things that we have to use in our schools are always substandard or in short supply, or in bad condition. Whereas over at the other schools, it's like if you go to Fremont on 76 and San Pedro, bad situation. You go to Belmont, way up there toward downtown Los Angeles, beautiful campus. Right there you see the great disparity, and it's a persistent disparity that continues on and on. But we must vote. Ruth Bader Ginsburg likewise died on last Friday, I believe it was, and up until her death, I think the balance on the court was 5-4. There were 5 conservatives to 4 liberals. But now Ms. Ginsburg is dead, and when the new person, a judge nominee, is appointed, you can guarantee that person will be another conservative. Instead of having a 5-4, it's going to be a 6-4. free. And that is what is going to be going on for the next 40 or 50 years here in this court, because the appointee, the person that, the judge that Trump is planning to nominate, she's only 48 years old, and she is a strict constructionist, which means that all the iterations of the Constitution that have taken place since the Civil War, she still goes back to that strict constructionist of that old original Constitution, which had the 3/5 clause, the fugitive slave law, and all of that. That is where her judicial temperament rests. And so if that is the case, then you know only bad laws, bad rulings are going to be coming out of the Supreme Court. She's against the ACA, and she's prepared to vote against the ACA when it comes, because that is her temperament. She's anti-abortion, although she swears up and down that she's going to follow the precedent of the court that it has set and observe the stare decisis. You can bet that they will shortly be overturning Roe v. Wade and any other laws that benefit or help women. Mind you, that the woman that is hurt the most, and who has always been hurt the most in this country, has always been the black woman. She has always been the most disrespected, the most despised, the most deflowered, or defoliated, no, not defoliated, deflowered, dehumanized, and these laws, therefore, that will be coming through the Supreme Court in the future are not going to be favorable laws for any black person here in America. While it will be almost like going back under the Roger Taney court. And those of you that don't know about Roger Taney, that's the court that most of the members of that court were slaveholders. Need I say more? And that is why Judge Taney and the bulk of that court brought forward the Dred Scott decision. And the Roberts Court is imitating, in my estimation, because of their votes on their rulings on Citizens United and Shelby County v. Holder, and a whole raft of cases that this Roberts Court has really caused a regression and a retrenchment of all of the civil rights gains that have been effected since, let's say, 1964. A lot of those gains are being erased. Yeah, you can still go in the restaurant, but you still may not get waited on. And they got a white lady that they call Karen, which is just a stereotype. But Karen can come in that restaurant and accuse you of anything. Or she can be in the Walmart and accuse a 9-year-old boy of fondling her sexually, all that type of thing. Or they can accuse, have you arrested for drinking coffee in Starbucks. All of those things are occurring in a more and more multiplied events. It's multiple occurrences and recurrences of what used to be microaggressions, but now they're becoming macroaggression because they're beginning to be repeated across all 50 states. All 50 states. You can get insulted in a racially tinged manner right here in the city of Los Angeles, which of course was itself no panacea if you go back and study the history. All of this brings me again to reaffirm my firm belief that everybody that is able to vote must a vote. We cannot sit at home. We cannot say, well, I don't like either one of them. We're going to have to make a choice. We're going to have to pick. Also, there are propositions here in the state of California that are going to have to be decided on, and I think the Uber drivers need a fair vote. There's still that powerful interest is still trying to neutralize or cut back on the number and amount of dialysis clinics that the people who need dialysis can conveniently go to, and they need your vote. And there's a vote for affirmative action, which I don't know who is going to benefit, but that is also on the ballot as well, and you need to look into it in order to make a just and informed decision. 5 minutes, all right, because we cannot afford to sit this one out. Justice is on the line. Mercy is on the line. Your job is on the line. How much you pay for the food that you have to buy in the store is on the line. How much you pay in property taxes is on the line. How much you pay in rent is going to be determined by how you vote. You must vote. You cannot say that it doesn't affect you, because yes, it affects you. The laws based upon your vote will determine how long our loved ones, or how our loved ones will be treated in the prisons and in the jails, and how they will be serviced in the convalescent home and the rest homes and in the hospital. Your vote is your voice, and you must make your voice heard. You cannot sit at home and the day after start talking about, well, I don't like this and I don't like that. Yeah, you liked it because you didn't vote. If you didn't like it, you should have voted the way you wanted it to go. And if enough of us vote the way we want it to go, then we can get things improved. I'm going to wrap up here. I don't know if I did much, but I want to remember our nurses, our doctors, our medical personnel, our medical corps, our medical cadres, all of that family of medical people who are working day and night to help us survive this current pandemic, this current plague, and remind you that they need our prayers, they need our help, because they are doing a yeoman's job. If anybody's doing the job of Christ right now, it's the people in the medical profession, and we need to lift them up in prayer. And not only those in the hospitals, working definitely in the hospitals, but the EMTs, the paramedics, the people that do in-home care, that are trying their best to blunt and block and stop the progress of this dread disease. And remember that the CDC is saying that this coronavirus is real and it is not going away, and they really don't have a handle on it as yet. They do tell you to put that mask on. I'm telling you to put that mask on. I put that mask on. You wear that mask at church. Ain't no harm. I wear a mask when I pray at church on Sunday at the altar prayer, because I find it necessary. It reduces the spray. Remember that spray in the air carries that coronavirus, and people are susceptible. So yes, you need to wear that mask as much as possible when you're in church on Sunday morning, and don't forget to go to church on Sunday, because the fact that you need it. And again, as I wrap up, let me say to my brothers and my sisters that are still working on those thankless jobs, they don't want to pay you for your overtime. They don't want to they don't want to put you on full time. They want to cut your hours. They want to call you in anytime they feel like it. But yet they don't want to pay you an honest wage. My brothers and my sisters, as I wrap up, I can say it and say it with fervor. If they don't want to pay you, don't work for them. Thank you, Doc. Y'all make sure you go to church this Sunday morning.